The Horizon landed at the Earth Space Command base in the Arizona desert. Lyra stood at the ship's viewport, watching as the blue and green planet grew larger. She had studied Earth in her lessons, but seeing it in person was different. It was so bright, so full of color compared to the dark purples and blacks of Taylor. "Are you ready?" Lieutenant Samantha Reeves asked, coming to stand beside her. Lyra nodded, though she wasn't sure if she was ready at all. The breathing mask she wore had been made smaller over the 2-week journey. Now it covered only her nose, allowing her to slowly adapt to Earth's air. They walked down the ramp together. The moment Lyra stepped onto Earth soil, she felt the difference. The gravity was lighter than on Taylor, but still heavier than on the ship. Her muscles, already weak by Tayloran standards, strained with each step. The sun was bright, almost painful to her large eyes. A group of humans waited for them. Men and women in different uniforms than the ship crew. They stared at Lyra with undisguised curiosity. "Princess Lyra, welcome to Earth," said a woman with gray hair and a stern face. "I am General Laura Miller. On behalf of Earth's United Council, I welcome you to our planet." Lyra tried to respond with the formal greeting she had practiced, but the words caught in her throat. The heat, the gravity, the stares, it was too much. Her legs gave way beneath her. Lieutenant Reeves caught her before she hit the ground. "Medical team!" she called out. The next few hours passed in a blur. Lyra woke in a white room, on a bed that had been adjusted for her height. Machines beeped softly nearby. Lieutenant Reeves sat in a chair next to the bed. "What happened?" Lyra asked. Her voice sounded strange to her ears. "You fainted," Lieutenant Reeves explained. "The doctors say it's a combination of the gravity, heat, and atmospheric differences. They're working on a treatment plan." Lyra closed her eyes. Even here, on a different planet, her weakness followed her. "My father would be ashamed," she whispered. "Your father isn't here," Lieutenant Reeves said firmly. "And on Earth, we don't measure people by their physical strength alone." Over the next week, Lyra stayed in the medical facility. The doctors ran tests, took samples, and adjusted her treatment. They seemed fascinated by her biology. One doctor explained that Lyra's condition would be considered a genetic variation on Earth, not a weakness. Lieutenant Reeves visited every day. She brought books about Earth, showed Lyra pictures of different places, and told her stories about human history. Lyra learned that Lieutenant Reeves, Samantha, as she asked to be called, had been chosen for this assignment because of her background in xenobiology and her experience with diplomatic missions. "The base is on the edge of a desert," Samantha explained one day, showing Lyra pictures on a tablet. "But there are many different environments on Earth. Forests, mountains, oceans, cities. Once you're stronger, I can show you." "If I get stronger," Lyra said. Samantha looked at her with a serious expression. "You will. But it might not be in the way you expect." After 2 weeks, Lyra was moved to living quarters on the base. Her room was larger than the one on the ship, with a bed, desk, chair, and a small bathroom. The windows were tinted to protect her sensitive eyes from the bright sunlight. Every morning, medical staff came to check on her. Every afternoon, she had therapy sessions to help her body adjust to Earth's gravity. And every evening, Samantha came to teach her about Earth culture. Despite these efforts, Lyra's health didn't improve. Her muscles ached constantly. She tired easily. The food, specially prepared to meet her nutritional needs, tasted strange and often made her sick. One night, after a particularly difficult day when Lyra had collapsed during her therapy session, she heard voices outside her door. "She's not improving," a male voice said. "If anything, she's getting worse." "The treatments aren't working," another voice agreed. "We need to consider sending her back." "That's not an option," Samantha's voice cut in. "Did you read the reports from the Tayloran ship? Her father sent her here because he doesn't want her. Sending her back would be a death sentence." "This isn't working, Lieutenant," the first voice said. "The princess is dying here. Our environment is too different from her home world." "Then we need to try something different," Samantha argued. "The base environment isn't helping. It's too controlled, too sterile." "What are you suggesting?" the second voice asked. "Let me take her off base," Samantha said. "My family has a ranch in Montana. The air is clean, the environment is natural. Maybe that's what she needs." There was silence then. "The higher-ups will never approve it." "Then I won't ask for approval," Samantha replied. "I'll take personal responsibility." The next morning, Samantha entered Lyra's room with determination in her eyes. Pack your things, princess. We're leaving. Leaving? Lyra asked, confused. Going where? Somewhere better than here, Samantha said. Somewhere you can heal. They left the base in Samantha's personal vehicle, a small craft that hovered above the ground. Lyra had never been in anything so small. The Earth landscape passed by outside the windows. First desert, then grasslands, then mountains in the distance. Won't you get in trouble? Lyra asked as they flew north. Samantha shrugged. Probably. But sometimes rules need to be broken. The journey took most of the day. Lyra slept through much of it, still weak from her time at the base. When she woke, the landscape had changed dramatically. There were trees, fields of grass, and mountains in the distance. Welcome to Montana, Samantha said as the vehicle descended toward a cluster of buildings nestled in a valley. This is my family's ranch. My parents left it to me when they died. The ranch house was made of wood with a wide porch that wrapped around it. The air smelled different here, fresh, clean, full of life. Lyra took a deep breath, and for the first time since arriving on Earth, her lungs didn't burn. It's beautiful, she said softly. Samantha smiled. Let's get you settled in. Life at the ranch was different from the base. There were no doctors with their tests, no schedules to follow. Samantha showed Lyra to a room on the first floor, with large windows that looked out over the fields. The windows are treated to filter the sunlight, Samantha explained, and I've adjusted the room's temperature to be more comfortable for you. That first night, Lyra slept better than she had since leaving Taylor. The quiet of the countryside was soothing after the constant noise of the base. In the morning, Samantha brought a tray with food, different from what Lyra had been given at the base. These are from my garden, Samantha explained, pointing to some colorful items on the plate. Fresh food might be easier for your system to process than the synthetic meals they were giving you. Surprisingly, Lyra found she could eat most of the food without feeling sick afterward. It was a small victory, but it gave her hope. Each day at the ranch followed a simple pattern. In the morning, Lyra would sit on the porch, soaking in the filtered sunlight. In the afternoon, Samantha would help her walk a little farther each day, first just around the house, then out to the garden, and eventually to the edge of the nearby forest. Your body isn't weak, Samantha told her one evening as they watched the sunset from the porch. It's just different. We need to build strength your way, not by Tayloran standards. What do you mean? Lyra asked. Taylorans evolved on a planet with higher gravity and less sunlight, Samantha explained. Your bodies are built for strength and endurance in those conditions. But that doesn't mean you can't be strong on Earth. We just need to find what works for you. Over the next few weeks, Samantha developed a new program for Lyra. Instead of trying to build muscle the way Taylorans did, they focused on flexibility and balance. Instead of fighting against Earth's gravity, Lyra learned to work with it. Slowly, things began to change. Lyra could walk farther without getting tired. She could stay in the sunlight longer without her eyes hurting. She began to learn the names of the plants in Samantha's garden, the birds that visited the feeders, the wild animals that sometimes appeared at the edge of the forest. I've never seen you smile before, Samantha said one day, as they sat by a small stream on the property. Lyra touched her face, surprised. I don't think I had much reason to before. For the first time in her life, Lyra began to wonder if perhaps her father had been wrong. Maybe she wasn't weak at all. Maybe she just needed the right environment to flourish. Princess Lyra stood by the window of her royal chambers. She looked out at the 3 moons of her home planet. Taylor, her thin fingers touched the cool glass. Unlike other Taylorans whose skin was dark and tough like obsidian, Lyra's skin was almost translucent. It showed the blue veins beneath. She was different. She was weak. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Lyra did not turn around. She knew who it was from the heavy footsteps. The human delegation has arrived, said the deep voice of General Krav, her father's most trusted advisor. Your father demands your presence in the throne room. Lyra nodded but did not speak. Her voice was soft, too soft for a Tayloran princess. Every word she spoke reminded others of her weakness. She followed General Krav through the crystal hallways of the palace. Guards stood at attention as they passed. Their eyes showed pity when they looked at her. Lyra kept her gaze on the floor. The throne room was vast. Pillars of black crystal rose to the high ceiling. The walls glittered with the light of 1,000 stars, projected from hidden devices. At the far end, on a platform of polished stone, sat King Zorax on his throne of metal and bone. His skin was the darkest black, like the space between stars. His eyes glowed red with the enhancements all warriors of his rank received. Before the throne stood the human delegation. 5 of them, dressed in blue uniforms with silver trim. They looked so small next to the Tayloran guards. Their skin was soft, their bodies fragile, yet they stood tall, unafraid. Lyra took her place to the right of her father's throne. She felt his disappointment without him saying a word. As agreed, "We offer this cultural exchange to strengthen the bonds between our worlds," said the leader of the humans, a woman with dark hair pulled back tightly from her face. Captain Maya Winters, Lyra remembered from the briefing, commander of the human starship Horizon. "The Tayloran Empire accepts your offer," King Zorax replied, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "And in return we offer something of equal value." Lyra felt a chill run through her body. She had not been told of any exchange. "My daughter, Princess Lyra, will accompany you back to Earth," King Zorax continued. "She will learn your ways, and you will learn ours through her." The throne room fell silent. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to speak, to object, but years of training kept her silent in the royal court. Captain Winters looked surprised, but quickly regained her composure. "We are honored by such a generous offer, Your Majesty. We will ensure Princess Lyra is treated with the utmost respect during her stay on Earth." After the formal meeting ended, Lyra was summoned to her father's private chambers. King Zorax stood with his back to her, looking at a holographic display of the Tayloran Empire's territories. "You know why I am sending you away," he said without turning. "Yes, Father," Lyra replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Council questions my leadership because of you," he continued. "A king who produces a weak heir is seen as weak himself. You are a stain on our bloodline." His words cut deeper than any blade, but Lyra showed no emotion. She had heard these things before. "The humans are physically weak like you," King Zorax said. "Perhaps among them you will find your place. Or perhaps their scientists will find a way to fix what is broken in you." "And if they don't?" Lyra asked. King Zorax finally turned to look at her. His face showed no love, only cold calculation. "Then at least you will be their problem, not mine." Lyra was given 1 day to prepare for her journey. Her personal servant, Mila, helped her pack her few belongings. Unlike most Taylorans, Mila was kind to Lyra. She had cared for the princess since her birth. "Earth has lower gravity than Taylor," Mila said as she folded Lyra's robes. "You might find it easier to move there." "Or I might find new ways to disappoint," Lyra replied. Mila stopped her work and took Lyra's hands in hers. "Listen to me, princess. The king is wrong about you. Your body may not be strong like other Taylorans, but there are different kinds of strength. I have seen your mind at work. You see things others miss." Lyra smiled sadly. "Thank you, Mila. I will miss you." The next morning, Lyra boarded the royal vessel Void Talon. Her few possessions were packed in crystalline containers. The ship would take her to the edge of Tayloran space, where she would transfer to the human vessel. From the viewing deck, she watched as her home planet grew smaller. The black cities and purple oceans of Taylor faded from view. Lyra felt both sadness and relief. She was leaving the only home she had ever known, but she was also leaving behind the constant disappointment she caused. 3 days later, the Void Talon rendezvoused with the human ship Horizon. Lyra stood in the airlock chamber, dressed in her formal robes of royal purple. She wore a breathing mask, as human air contained elements that could be harmful to Taylorans in large doses. The airlock doors opened. Captain Maya Winters stood there with 2 other humans. One was a tall woman with light brown skin and short hair. Her uniform had different markings than the others. "Princess Lyra, welcome to the Horizon," Captain Winters said with a small bow. "This is Lieutenant Samantha Reeves. She will be your primary guide and liaison during your stay on Earth." Lieutenant Reeves stepped forward and bowed. "It's an honor to meet you, Princess. I've been studying Tayloran culture to help make your transition as smooth as possible." Lyra nodded in acknowledgement. The gravity on the human ship was indeed lighter than on Taylor, but still stronger than she was used to. Her first step forward was unsteady. Captain Winters reached out and caught her arm, steadying her. Their eyes met for a moment. Lyra saw no pity in the human's eyes, only concern. The artificial gravity can be adjusted in your quarters, Captain Winters said. We want you to be comfortable. As they walked through the ship, Lyra noticed the humans watching her with curiosity. She was taller than most of them, her skin darker, her eyes larger. To them, she was the strange one, the alien. It was an odd feeling after a lifetime of being the one who didn't fit in. Lieutenant Reeves showed Lyra to her quarters. The room was small by Tayloran standards, but had been modified with a higher ceiling and a bed size for her taller frame. We'll reach Earth in about 2 weeks, Lieutenant Reeves explained. That should give you time to adjust to our atmosphere gradually. The medical team has prepared a schedule for reducing your time with the breathing mask. When Lieutenant Reeves left, Lyra sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in her life, she was truly alone. No father to disappoint. No court to whisper about her weakness. No expectations she couldn't meet. Welcome to Earth, Princess, Captain Winters had said. I hope you'll find strength in our world. Lyra didn't know if that was possible. But as the horizon carried her toward a new world, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. 6 months passed at the Montana ranch. Summer turned to fall, and the green fields changed to gold and red. Lyra watched the transformation with wonder. On Taylor, the landscape remained largely the same throughout the year. The changing seasons of Earth fascinated her. One evening, as dark clouds gathered on the horizon, Lyra sat on the porch with Samantha. They had developed a routine of watching the sunset together, talking about their day. A storm is coming, Samantha said, looking at the sky. A big one, from the looks of those clouds. Lyra felt something strange, a tingling sensation across her skin. I can feel it, she said, surprised. Samantha looked at her curiously. Feel what? The air, Lyra tried to explain. It's charged with something. Static electricity. Samantha nodded. Humans can sometimes feel it too before a big storm, but you seem more sensitive to it. The storm hit with full force an hour later. Rain lashed against the windows. Wind howled around the house. And then came the lightning, bright flashes that lit up the night sky followed by thunder that shook the walls. Lyra stood at the window watching in awe. On Taylor, storms were rare and mild. Nothing like this wild display of nature's power. A bolt of lightning struck a tree near the house. The flash was blinding, the crack of thunder immediate and deafening. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Lyra felt a surge of energy course through her body, like nothing she had ever experienced before. Her muscles tensed, her vision sharpened, and for a brief moment she felt stronger than she ever had in her life. Samantha, who had been standing nearby, stared at her with wide eyes. Lyra, your skin, it was glowing. Lyra looked down at her hands. The glow was gone, but she could still feel the residual energy pulsing through her veins. I felt powerful, she whispered. The next morning, Samantha brought out several old books and digital files. I've been studying Tayloran biology since I was assigned to your case, she explained. There are references in some ancient texts to your people's sensitivity to electromagnetic energy. She showed Lyra a passage from a Tayloran historical document. It described how in ancient times, Tayloran warriors would harness the power of electrical storms to enhance their strength in battle. Your ancestors evolved on a planet with frequent electromagnetic disturbances, Samantha explained. Most Taylorans lost this sensitivity as they developed technologically, using machines instead of their natural abilities. But maybe you didn't lose it. Maybe that's not a weakness, it's a gift that others have forgotten. Over the next few weeks, they experimented. Samantha used her background in science to build simple devices that generated controlled electromagnetic fields. Lyra's body responded to these fields in remarkable ways. Her muscles strengthened, her reflexes sharpened, and most surprisingly, she discovered she could sense electrical currents around her. It's like seeing with a new sense, Lyra tried to explain. I can feel the electricity running through the walls, the devices, even the subtle fields generated by living things. As her abilities developed, Lyra began to wonder about her condition. What if it wasn't a defect at all? What if it was simply a different path of Tayloran evolution, one that had been dismissed because it didn't fit with their warrior culture? One morning, as Lyra practiced manipulating small objects using the electrical field around her hands, an urgent message arrived for Samantha. Her face grew serious as she read it. What's wrong? Lyra asked. Trouble, Samantha said grimly. The Krell Dominion has launched attacks on both Tayloran and human colonies near the Veil Nebula. The Krell were an ancient species, known for their aggression and technological prowess. They had been enemies of both humans and Taylorans for centuries, though an uneasy peace had held for the last 50 years. My father will be preparing for war, Lyra said. The thought of her homeworld in danger stirred complicated feelings in her. Despite everything, Taylor was still her home. Over the next few days, more reports came in. The Krell attacks were growing more coordinated, more deadly. They had developed a new weapon, a biological agent that targeted the Tayloran nervous system, leaving warriors paralyzed and defenseless. Earth scientists are trying to develop a defense, Samantha explained as they watched the news reports. But progress is slow. They don't understand Tayloran biology well enough. Lyra thought about her people, about her father who had sent her away. Despite his cruelty, she didn't wish him harm. I want to help, she said. Samantha looked at her with concern. How? The research facilities are all at the main base. Then we go back to the base, Lyra said firmly. My body has changed here. I'm stronger now, and I understand my abilities better. Samantha agreed, but before they could leave, another storm hit the ranch. This one was even more powerful than the last. As lightning struck near the house, Lyra felt the now familiar surge of energy. But this time, something new happened. In the moment of the lightning strike, her mind seemed to expand. Suddenly, she could sense not just the electrical fields nearby, but signals traveling through the air, communication signals. Without understanding how, Lyra found herself mentally following one of these signals. It led her to Samantha's communication device in the other room, and through that device, she could somehow sense the network it connected to, and beyond that, other networks stretching across the planet and into space. When the storm passed, Lyra told Samantha what had happened. It's like I became part of the network for a moment, she tried to explain. I could sense the data moving through it. Samantha's eyes widened. That's impossible. And yet, with what we've learned about your sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, maybe it's not so impossible after all. They decided to test this new ability. Samantha set up a secure network connection, isolated from the main Earth communication systems. When the next storm came, Lyra focused on that connection, trying to sense it with her mind. It worked. She could not only sense the network, but could follow the data within it, could understand the patterns and flows of information. It was overwhelming at first, like trying to listen to 1,000 voices at once. But gradually she learned to filter, to focus on specific streams of data. One evening, while practicing this new skill, Lyra accidentally connected to a secured military network. Before Samantha could stop her, Lyra found herself reading encrypted communications, Krell communications, intercepted by Earth intelligence but not yet decoded. To Lyra's surprise, she could understand the patterns. The Krell language was complex, but the electrical patterns it created were clear to her enhanced senses. I can read their battle plans, she told a stunned Samantha, and I think I know how their bioweapon works. The Krell weapon targeted the electrical signals in Tayloran nervous systems, disrupting the natural flow of energy through their bodies. But Lyra, with her unique sensitivity, could see a flaw in the weapon's design. It's tuned to a specific frequency, she explained to Samantha, a frequency that most Taylorans operate on. But mine is different. That's why my father thought I was weak. My nervous system generates a different electrical pattern. Samantha quickly understood the implications. If we could adjust the frequency of Tayloran nervous systems, or shield them somehow, we could protect them from the weapon, Lyra finished. That night, as they prepared to return to the base with their discovery, Earth received a distress call from the Tayloran homeworld. The Krell had launched a massive attack. King Zorax had been wounded in battle, and the Tayloran forces were being decimated by the bioweapon. They're requesting Earth's assistance, Samantha said, reading the message. Your father has specifically asked for any information we might have on countering the Krell weapon. Lyra stood in Samantha's office, watching the distress call from the father who had discarded her. On the screen, King Zorax looked older, weaker than she remembered. His proud face was marked with pain. We must go now, Lyra said, her voice steady and strong. Not for him, for all of them. As they packed to leave the ranch, Lyra took one last look at the place that had become her true home. Here, Among the mountains and forests of Earth, she had discovered strength she never knew she had. She had found a new kind of power, one not based on brute force but on sensitivity, on difference, on adaptation. "Are you ready?" Samantha asked, standing by the vehicle. Lyra nodded. "I was born ready," she said. "I just didn't know it until now." They traveled first to the Earth Space Command base, where Lyra presented her findings to the top scientists and military leaders. Many were skeptical at first. How could this alien princess, sent away by her own father for weakness, have discovered what their best minds had missed? But when Lyra demonstrated her abilities, when she decoded Krell transmissions in real time and explained the mechanics of their bioweapon, the skepticism turned to amazement. "We need to get this information to the Tayloran forces immediately," General Laura Miller said, "and we need to develop countermeasures based on Princess Lyra's insights." "I want to deliver the information myself," Lyra said firmly. "I need to return to Taylor." There was hesitation among the Earth leaders. Sending Lyra back into a war zone seemed risky. But Samantha spoke up in her defense. The Earth battleship Starlight Defender emerged from hyperspace near the Tayloran home system. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. Debris from destroyed ships floated in the void. The outer planet showed signs of bombardment. And in orbit around Taylor itself, a fierce battle raged between Tayloran defenders and Krell attack vessels. On the bridge of the Starlight Defender, Lyra watched the monitors with a heavy heart. This was her home under attack, its people suffering. She could feel the electromagnetic disturbances from the weapons fire even at this distance. "We're being hailed by Tayloran High Command," the communications officer reported. The main screen activated. An older Tayloran male with battle scars across his obsidian face appeared. He wore the insignia of a high general. "This is General Vex of the Tayloran Imperial Forces," he said. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Lyra. "Princess, is that really you?" Lyra stepped forward. She wore a modified Earth military uniform, adapted for her taller frame. Around her wrists were the devices Earth engineers had created to help her control and amplify her electromagnetic abilities. "Yes, General," she replied. "I've returned with information that could help turn the tide of this war. We need to speak with the War Council immediately." General Vex hesitated, his red eyes studying her. "The council is in disarray. The king is wounded. Many of our best warriors have fallen to the Krell bioweapon, and the enemy advances daily." "All the more reason to hear what we have to say," Samantha interjected, coming to stand beside Lyra. After a moment, General Vex nodded. "I will arrange safe passage to the surface and a meeting with what remains of the council. Be warned, Princess, Taylor is not as you left it." The Starlight Defender docked at one of the few remaining orbital stations. From there, Lyra, Samantha, and a small team of Earth scientists and soldiers took a shuttle to the surface. As they descended through the atmosphere, Lyra could see the damage below. The once proud black cities were scarred with the marks of battle. Some areas still burned with the distinctive blue flame of Krell weapons. They landed at the Imperial Palace, which had been converted into a military headquarters. Tayloran soldiers escorted them through hallways that Lyra remembered from her childhood. But where there had once been art and beauty, now there were hastily erected barricades and medical stations for the wounded. The War Council chamber was a shadow of its former grandeur. Only 5 of the 12 council seats were filled. General Vex took his place among them, and at the head of the table, in the throne-like seat of the Supreme Commander, sat King Zorax. Lyra's father had changed. His proud posture was gone, replaced by a slight stoop. A vicious scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, still raw and healing. His red eyes, once bright with power and disdain, now looked tired. For a moment, father and daughter stared at each other across the chamber. The room fell silent, everyone aware of the history between them. "So?" King Zorax finally spoke, his voice rougher than Lyra remembered. "The weak daughter returns." Lyra lifted her chin. "I return neither weak nor strong by your standards, father. I return different. And that difference may save your empire." She stepped forward and placed a data crystal on the council table. "This contains information about the Krell bioweapon and how to counter it. It also has detailed intelligence on their fleet movements and battle plans." General Vex picked up the crystal, his expression skeptical. "How did you come by this intelligence?" "The Krell communications are impenetrable to our best cryptographers." "Show them," Samantha said quietly to Lyra. Lyra nodded and raised her hands. The devices on her wrists activated with a soft blue glow. She closed her eyes, focusing on the electromagnetic fields around her. The lights in the council chamber flickered. The screens on the wall suddenly displayed Krell battle communications, the alien symbols flowing and changing as Lyra translated them in real time. "The genetic condition you thought made me weak," Lyra explained as she worked, "actually gives me heightened sensitivity to electromagnetic energy. I can sense, interpret, and manipulate it in ways other Taylorans cannot." The council members watched in amazement as she decoded communications that had baffled their best minds. When she finished, Lyra lowered her hands. The glow from her wrist devices faded. "The Krell bioweapon targets the standard Tayloran nervous system frequency," she explained. "But my nervous system operates on a different frequency, the one your scientists labeled as a defect. That's why I'm immune." One of the Earth scientists stepped forward, a woman with short gray hair and determined eyes. "We've developed devices that can temporarily shift the frequency of Tayloran nervous systems, providing protection from the weapon. We can begin production immediately if you provide the facilities." The council members looked to King Zorax. The Tayloran king's expression was unreadable as he studied his daughter. "And what do you want in return for this? Assistance?" he asked. "We want the same thing you do," Lyra replied. "To stop the Krell before they destroy both our worlds." After a moment of tense silence, King Zorax nodded. "General Vex, provide the Earth scientists with whatever they need. If this works, we may yet survive this war." The next few days were a blur of activity. The Earth scientists worked with Tayloran engineers to mass-produce the protective devices. Lyra spent hours in the command center, intercepting and decoding Krell communications, providing invaluable intelligence to the Tayloran fleet. Samantha rarely left her side, helping to interpret between the Earth and Tayloran teams and monitoring Lyra's health. Using her abilities for extended periods was taxing, and sometimes Lyra would collapse from exhaustion. "You need to rest," Samantha insisted after one such episode. "There's no time," Lyra argued. "The Krell are planning a major assault on the third moon. If we don't warn the defenders, you can't help anyone if you burn yourself out," Samantha said firmly. 2 hours of rest. That's all I'm asking." Reluctantly, Lyra agreed. As she rested in her old chambers in the palace, she found it strange to be back in the place where she had felt so unwelcome for so long. Nothing in the room had changed since she left. It was as if her father had simply closed the door on that chapter of his life. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. To her surprise, King Zorax entered the room. He moved stiffly, his recent wounds clearly still painful. "The Earthwoman said you needed rest," he said awkwardly. Lyra sat up on her bed. "I'm fine. I'll return to the command center soon." King Zorax looked around the room, his eyes lingering on the few personal items Lyra had left behind. "Your abilities have proven valuable," he said finally. "The council is impressed." Coming from her father, this was high praise indeed. Lyra felt a complex mix of emotions, satisfaction, resentment, and a lingering desire for his approval that she thought she had left behind on Earth. "I didn't develop these abilities to impress the council," she said. "I developed them because I found people who saw my difference as an opportunity, not a flaw." King Zorax's expression hardened. "You speak of the humans." "I speak of Samantha Reeves," Lyra corrected. "She showed me that strength comes in many forms. That adaptation can be more powerful than rigid adherence to tradition." Her father was silent for a long moment. Then, to Lyra's surprise, he sat on the edge of her bed, wincing slightly from his wounds. "When the Krell first attacked," he said, his voice low, "they targeted our strongest warriors first. Their bioweapon incapacitated our best fighters within minutes. Strength, as we had defined it for generations, became our greatest weakness." He looked at Lyra directly. Perhaps I was wrong about what makes a Tayloran strong." It was as close to an apology as Lyra would ever get from her proud father. She nodded, accepting it for what it was. "We should return to the command center," she said. "The Krell won't wait while we reconcile." The next day, intelligence indicated that the Krell were massing their forces for a major attack on the Tayloran homeworld. The protective devices had been distributed to as many warriors as possible, but production couldn't keep pace with the need. In a bold move, Lyra proposed leading a small team behind enemy lines. "If we can reach their command ship," she explained to the War Council, I might be able to disrupt their communication network. Without coordination, their attack will fall apart. It's too dangerous, General Vex objected. The princess is too valuable to risk on such a mission. I'm not just a princess anymore, Lyra said firmly. I'm a warrior in my own way, and this is a battle I'm uniquely qualified to fight. After much debate, the mission was approved. Lyra would lead a joint team of Tayloran and Earth Special Forces aboard a modified stealth ship. Samantha insisted on joining the mission, despite Lyra's concerns for her safety. We started this journey together, Samantha said stubbornly. We'll finish it together. The stealth ship slipped past the Krell blockade under cover of a diversionary attack by the Tayloran fleet. Using her abilities, Lyra guided them through the enemy formation, sensing the electromagnetic signatures of the Krell vessels and helping the pilot avoid detection. They located the Krell command ship at the heart of the enemy fleet, a 2LM1 massive vessel bristling with weapons. Using a daring maneuver, they attached their stealth ship to the hull of the command ship at a blind spot in its sensor coverage. Lyra woke to the soft beeping of medical equipment. Her body felt heavy, distant as if it belonged to someone else. Through half-open eyes, she saw a white ceiling and bright lights. She's waking up, a familiar voice said. Samantha's face appeared above her, tired but smiling. Welcome back, Princess. Lyra tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Samantha held a cup of water to her lips, helping her drink. What happened? Lyra finally managed to ask. The mission was a success, Samantha assured her. Your program worked perfectly. The Krell fleet fell into chaos when their communications collapsed. The Tayloran forces seized the advantage and pushed them back. Lyra tried to sit up but winced at the sharp pain in her side. Looking down, she saw bandages wrapped around her midsection. Easy, Samantha cautioned. The Krell blade missed your vital organs, but you lost a lot of blood. The doctors had to combine Tayloran and human medical techniques to save you. General Krav, Lyra asked. Samantha's expression darkened. Captured. He's being held for trial as a traitor. He's revealed a lot under questioning, including that he was the one who convinced your father that your condition was a weakness that would taint the royal bloodline. This information didn't surprise Lyra as much as it might have once. She had come to understand that her father, for all his faults, had been manipulated by those around him. It didn't excuse his treatment of her, but it helped explain it. How long have I been unconscious? She asked. 3 days, Samantha replied. A lot has happened in that time. She explained that after the Krell command ship was disabled, the combined Tayloran and Earth forces had launched a major counteroffensive. They had reclaimed 3 key planets and pushed the Krell back to their own territory. A temporary ceasefire had been established while peace negotiations began. Your father has been asking about you, Samantha added. He's come to visit twice while you were unconscious. This did surprise Lyra. My father came here? To the medical center? Samantha nodded. He looked concerned. It was strange to see. Before they could discuss this further, a nurse entered the room. The king is here to see the princess, she announced. Samantha squeezed Lyra's hand. I'll give you some privacy, she said, rising from her chair. King Zorax entered the room slowly, still moving with the stiffness of his own healing wounds. His royal armor had been replaced with simpler attire, and without the formal trappings of kingship, he looked older, more vulnerable. He stood at the foot of Lyra's bed, his red eyes studying her. The doctors say you will recover, he said finally. Yes, Lyra replied, though it may take time. An awkward silence fell between them. There was too much history, too much pain for easy conversation. Your actions saved many lives, King Zorax said at last. The War Council has recommended you receive the highest military honor of the Empire. Lyra almost laughed at the irony. A military honor for the daughter you sent away for being too weak to be a warrior. Her father's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond to the barb. Instead, he moved to the side of her bed and, to her astonishment, took her hand in his. I was wrong, he said, the words clearly difficult for him, about many things. General Krav's treachery opened my eyes to how I have been misled, but your actions showed me what true strength can be. Lyra looked at their joined hands, his large and battle-scarred, her smaller but now marked with the distinctive patterns that had appeared on her skin. After her extensive use of her electromagnetic abilities, the patterns glowed faintly, pulsing with her heartbeat. What happens now? She asked. That depends, her father replied. The council wants you to return permanently, to take your place as heir to the throne. Lyra had not expected this. And what do you want, father? King Zorak seemed surprised by the question. Perhaps no one had asked him what he wanted in a very long time. He hesitated. I want to know my daughter, the one I sent away without truly seeing her value. It was as close to an apology as the proud king could manage. Lyra understood that now, understood the Tayloran culture that made it nearly impossible for her father to admit his mistakes directly. I need time to think, she said. Her father nodded and released her hand. Of course. There is much to consider. After he left, Samantha returned. She had clearly been waiting just outside the door. So, she said, sitting beside the bed again, the prodigal princess is welcomed home with open arms. Not exactly, Lyra smiled weakly. But it's a start. In the weeks that followed, as Lyra recovered from her wounds, major changes swept through both the Tayloran Empire and its relationship with Earth. The peace. Negotiations with the Krell revealed that their aggression had been fueled by misinformation provided by General Krav and his conspirators, who had wanted to push both species into a war that would eliminate what they saw as impure bloodlines. With the truth exposed, a more lasting peace became possible. Representatives from Earth, Taylor, and the Krell Dominion met on neutral ground to forge new agreements. Lyra, with her unique ability to understand both human and Tayloran perspectives, became a key figure in these negotiations. As her strength returned, so did her abilities. The extensive use of her electromagnetic powers during the mission had permanently changed her. The patterns on her skin no longer faded completely, and her sensitivity to electromagnetic fields had increased dramatically. Earth and Tayloran scientists worked together to understand these changes, creating new devices to help her control her growing powers. 3 months after the battle on the Krell command ship, Lyra stood on the balcony of the royal palace looking out at the 3 moons of Taylor. The city below was being rebuilt, the damage of war gradually erased. In the palace courtyard, a joint team of Tayloran and Earth engineers was installing a new communication array, one designed with input from Lyra to be compatible with her unique abilities. Samantha joined her on the balcony. In recognition of her role in the war, she had been appointed Earth's official ambassador to the Tayloran Empire. Beautiful view, she commented, looking at the moons. It is, Lyra agreed. Though I miss the mountains of Montana sometimes. You can always visit, Samantha said. The ranch will always be there for you. Lyra smiled at her friend, the human who had changed her life so completely. I may take you up on that offer sooner than you think. Earlier that day, King Zorax had made a surprising announcement to the High Council. He intended to abdicate the throne in favor of his daughter. Princess Lyra has demonstrated a new kind of strength, he had told the stunned counselors. The kind of strength our empire needs to move forward in this new era. The council chamber had erupted in debate. Some members supported the king's decision, citing Lyra's crucial role in the war. Others objected, clinging to traditional notions of Tayloran leadership. In the end, a compromise was reached. Lyra would be named heir apparent, but would first undertake a diplomatic mission to strengthen ties between the 3 species. My father wants me to lead, Lyra told Samantha now, but I'm not sure I'm ready. No one is ever ready to lead, Samantha replied. But if anyone can bring together these different worlds, it's you. You've lived in both, understood both. You've seen strength and weakness in different forms. A ceremonial horn sounded from the palace below, signaling the beginning of the evening's formal event. Tonight, the peace treaty would be officially signed, with representatives from all 3 worlds in attendance. Lyra wore special ceremonial robes for the occasion, designed to accommodate the glowing patterns on her skin rather than hide them. As she prepared to go downstairs, she paused at the door. When my father sent me to Earth, she said thoughtfully, he thought he was getting rid of a problem. He never imagined I would return changed, or that the change would be exactly what our people needed. Samantha smiled. Life has a way of working out differently than we expect. The great hall of the palace was filled with dignitaries from 3 worlds. Taylorans with their obsidian skin and red eyes, humans of various colors and sizes, even a delegation of Krell, their insectoid forms adorned with symbols of peace rather than war. King Zorak sat on his throne, watching as Lyra entered the hall. The crowd parted for her, whispers following in her wake. Many had heard stories of the princess with strange powers, but few had seen her since her return. As Lyra approached the throne, the patterns on her skin glowed more brightly, responding to the electromagnetic fields in the room. She no longer tried to hide this reaction, no longer saw it as a sign of difference to be ashamed of. "Princess Lyra," her father said formally, rising from his throne. "Step forward." Lyra ascended the steps to stand beside her father. He turned to address the assembled crowd. "Many of you know the story," he began. "How I sent my daughter to Earth because I believed her to be weak. How she returned to us as a warrior who helped save our world." He looked at Lyra, real pride in his eyes for perhaps the first time. "What you may not know is that in doing so, she taught an old king a valuable lesson about the nature of strength." He gestured to the Earth delegation where Samantha stood. "Our human allies showed my daughter what I could not. That different does not mean lesser. That adaptation can be more powerful than tradition. That true strength comes in many forms.